And I think you all know that livable communities are places where people can grow up and they can grow old with independence and dignity. So my job today is to say hello to you from May Carpenter, who is vacationing, a much-deserved vacation, our commissioner, and also from the county exec, George Latimer. I am going to be introducing Jennifer Schwartz Crawford, who is an amazing person, and she is on the staff of our Livable Communities unit. But I want to say to you that I've been the executive director of Livable Communities for a long time now. And, you know, sometimes it's difficult to keep things fresh and keep things alive and keep things innovative and nuanced. But you know what? It's not hard with this unit. I have a wonderful, wonderful team of people that I work with. Jennifer Schwartz Crawford. I have Mary Kay Capasso, who also could not be here today, and I know many of you know her. And then there in the back is Charlotte Nottingham, who is all of our right-hand persons. So we just want to say that we're so pleased that you're here. We want you to network, we want you to have fun, we want you to leave your resources here, we want you to enjoy our wonderful chef's salad, and we want you to just exchange information and do the meet and greet the way it was designed and planned for you all. So what I'm going to do, we have a very, very special guest today. I am so excited. James O'Neill is a colleague. He is a friend. He is wonderful. But Jennifer is going to introduce you, James, and I am now going to introduce Jennifer.
Thank you so much for coming. For those who came last year, you know this was the first event that we did in person, outside, since COVID started. And so this event has a very near and dear place in my heart. And I'm always so grateful for everybody who turns out and who comes here. Also, I want to say a very big thank you to our vendors, to Judith, who is here from Aromatherapy and Wellness Connections. Very big thank you to James O'Neill, New York State AARP President and AARP, for coming out. Thank you to Farah in the back from Department of Health. She can tell you about the Know Better, Live Better program. And again, thank you so. And thank you to Esmerito for catering today. And of course, thank you to our Livable Communities Connections coordinators. For those who are here, you may want to stand up. Our LCCs provide Livable Communities programming and funding to all of the different regions at Lancaster. Thank you so much. Please see Louise about NAPAS forms if you have a moment. And with that, I am going to introduce James O'Neill. It is absolutely my pleasure to introduce James C. O'Neill. James C. O'Neill is the volunteer state president of AARP New York, a United Nations representative of the International Federation on Aging, and he is an independent consultant on older adult human rights and healthcare issues. After years of community healthcare education and advocacy for older adults, primarily in ethnic and racial communities of New York City, James retired in 2015 to begin the next phase of life, still advocating for older adults. Mr. O'Neill is a past president of the State Society on Aging of New York. He serves on the board of directors on a number of New York City's interagency councils on aging, New York State and community advisory boards on community development and human rights for older persons, in addition to duties at the United Nations and at AARP New York. James has been the recipient of many community leadership and service awards, including SSA's Advocate Older Adults Award and the Walter Beatty Award for outstanding contributions and commitment to the work of the State Society on Aging of New York. James O'Neill is an undergraduate of Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and he earned his MA from New York University in New York City. It's my pleasure to introduce James O'Neill.
Thank you for coming out. Boy, the networking thus far has been great. We've met a number of really, really interesting people who are interested in the work that we're doing for older adults in New York State. And I commend you and hope that you will continue to be interested and become a part of it. And for those of you in the room who have not yet joined AARP, by all means, do so. You may have heard that the Congress has approved the prescription drug bill, which we've been after forever and a day. It's passed the Senate. Hopefully it will pass the House very shortly. And we would have lower prescription drug prices and a cap on the amount of money that pharmaceutical companies can charge for insulin, among other things. So it's been really great. Jennifer gave you a brief bio of me, and that's more than sufficient. You basically know who I am. I know a number of you in the room. We've worked together for the past 20 years or so. I was at the Visiting Nurse Service of New York, and then at Beth Abraham and at Centerlight Healthcare. And so a number of you I met, and we've continued to be colleagues. At the United Nations in 2021 to 2030 has been designated the Decade of Healthy Aging. It's an attempt to maximize the benefits and minimize the burdens of aging populations worldwide. Globally, societies are aging at an unprecedented rate, and nations are being forced to deal with understanding longevity, and how nations are being forced to deal with understanding this problem. Those of us involved with gerontology and providing social and medical services to older adults remember the late Dr. Robert Butler. Many of you've heard of Dr. Butler and his International Longevity Center. Dr. Butler, whom I had the privilege and honor to meet 2 years before he passed away, was very outspoken when it came to providing services for older adults, and it was interesting because people had their ideas of what older people needed and not basically what older people wanted. And as a result, they forced many healthcare solutions on people when they had no need for those services at all. So the Longevity Institute and now the National Academy of Medicine's Global Roadmap for Healthy Longevity, which acknowledges worldwide growth in the percent of older adults compared to the relatively low birth rate of many developed countries. The roadmap, which is from the National Health Center, recommends a realistic version of healthy longevity and could be achieved by 2050. That's going to be yet to be seen. In order to achieve infrastructure, physical environments, work, education, and retirement at a healthy pace. At the heart of the roadmap are action areas that include age-friendly environment, combating ageism, and integrated and long-term care services. Developing thriving, interactive communities lies at the base of providing an increasingly older population the services that are needed. It becomes necessary to do a basic assessment of the issues and challenges that diverse older adults face in their communities, building coalitions and strategic partners. You've heard about the public-private partnership here, and develop an agreed and shared strategy of plan of action. The 2030 United Nations Agenda for Sustainable Development provides a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals, called SDGs, which are an urgent call for action by all nations and communities. There are annual reports which I've had a chance to look at, and basically none of the nations are up to date with their promises of what they're due as far as completing their Sustainable Development Goals. The World Bank, in its report, Silver Hues, Building an Age-Ready Cities, suggests that cities need to become age-friendly by starting to focus on 6 areas. 1, universal design, planning building codes and regulations whose use is encouraged in design and retrofitting structures. Housing solutions, homes that help older persons to live independently, safe, and dignified lives by being universally accessible. Creating multi-generation spaces. Older adults thrive when they have access to social settings and community facilities. Better transportation, clear signage, and thoughtfully designed accessible entranceways, waiting areas, and walking paths. Set prices for the accommodations to be reasonable. Technology, age-friendly healthcare apps and smartphones for service providers, medical professionals, and caregivers. Efficient spatial forms, effective and accessible spatial planning. It's extremely important and necessary to listen to the voices of older people. Don't tell me what you think I need. Tell me, ask me, and I'll tell you what I want and need. I am the son of a housekeeper, my mom. My dad was working, and I was born in the Jim Crow South in North Carolina in the late 1940s. My dad decided that there would be no future for his children. There were 3 of us at that point. Later, there were 6. And so he decided we had to move from the South. We did. We moved to Pennsylvania when I was 8 years old. When we moved to Pennsylvania, we encountered someone, and you can go online and look up the Myers family. It's 1958, I believe. But when we moved to Pennsylvania, we encountered someone that was an enigma to us, and that was a man by the name of William Levitt. And we were going to the second Levittown, the first Levittown being on Long Island, the second one being in Pennsylvania. And Bill Levitt wanted no black people in his communities, the homes that he built. Also, he, being Jewish, wanted no Jewish people in the community. So he did everything he could to keep Jewish people out. So getting financing for homes was really impossible. It was the Quakers in Philadelphia area that actually bought the home that we had and sold it back to my dad for $1 plus a mortgage. And that's how we got the home. And in that time, the people who already lived in the community threw rocks at our home, broke glass, put a hole in the side of my head, which meant that I had to wear glasses. I've worn glasses since I was 8 years old. And cataract surgery has made it so that I don't have to wear other than readers after well over 50 years. But Bill Levitt was instrumental in leading this attack on us. Listening to older adults and storytelling helps to provide you information about what their needs are. And so you shouldn't just assume anything about a person. We're all different, we're all diverse, and we have different needs. We have different desires. And that you should take into effect when you talk to older adults. You need to listen. Listening is very important. All older adults have a right to safe and dignified lives, independently living as long as they possibly can. It's important to remember that older adults are diverse and have different life experiences, and those life experiences are very, very important. And basically, when you go to a physician and you get 5 minutes of their time, they really aren't listening to you. They're prescribing for you what they believe you need. Okay? That can be bad because I've come from a situation where health care was not readily available only because of the color of my skin. And later on in life, when I actually had health care and accessed that health care to make things better for me, I'm living with diabetes and have been for a long time. But that was because I actually pointed out to the doctor that I think, my mom told me, but that I think I had diabetes. And so the doctor said, well, what makes you think that? I said, I passed out at the dinner table the other day, and my mother took my head out of the plate of food and put a piece of candy in my mouth and said to the rest of the family, who were very surprised at the table, don't worry about it. It's just he has diabetes. We'll go to the doctor tomorrow and find out what's going on. Okay, so it's important to listen to older adults to know what their needs actually are. When engaging older adults, carefully listen to their lived experiences. How many of you have heard of the witches of India and certain parts of Africa? Is that Jennifer that has heard of them? Oh, I thought I saw your hand up. In certain parts of India, primarily southern part of the country, and in certain parts of Africa, women get married at a very early age. And in many of these countries, in many of these areas, there's a lot of fighting going on, and a lot of the husbands are killed. Now, in many cases, these young women live to be older. What we would call still young, I mean, AARP, 50 and older to join, but you can actually join when you're younger than that. So the women, as they grow older, they have this money and property and everything that they'd inherited from their husband. Once they're at a certain age, other men in the village quite often want to take what they have. So what they say is, this woman is a witch. So if you declare her a witch, then you can take her money, her property, and everything else. And it's allowed. However, what's happening now is more and more people are listening to what women have to say. So it's important when you're talking about what people need and what people want, that you make sure that you talk to women about what their needs and wants are. It's no longer a man's world. And even though we found that out here in this country a number of years ago, in a lot of countries, countries that aren't as developed as ours, they still have policies that favor men and do harm to women. And that we have to make sure that we fight against as much as possible. After listening, perhaps conducting a number of focus groups, a simple and clear strategy by older adults, for older adults, with the impact of other stakeholders and partners can be developed. Provide a commitment to work towards shared objectives and shared activities that have maximum input and help evaluate effectiveness. Public spaces and open streets are essential to older adults. They worry about the personal safety, fear tripping and falling on uneven sidewalks and gratings, fear loud noises, groups of young teenagers and adolescents. Traffic is also a problem. It doesn't take long before older adults become lonely and more socially isolated. Parks that once provided a convenient and safe place start to empty of older adults. And so-called senior centers in countries that provide such centers seldom provide the solution to the problem. In New York City, for example, less than 15% of the population eligible to attend senior centers will attend a center. The result, much of the valuable information about available community social services never reach the eyes and ears of those people who have not been attending the senior center. What other means do you have of reaching them? I don't know, but a lot of the departments for aging have not explored those possibilities. Perhaps here in Westchester they have. Reaching older adults in urban and rural areas pose different types of challenges. Distances between centers and lack of transportation alternatives in rural areas make attendance at senior centers and attending medical appointments even more difficult. Social isolation becomes more of a concern as the number of older people grows, especially considering that the fastest growing group worldwide are people 85 years old and older. Goal number 11 of the Sustainable Development Goals, remember that we mentioned before, titled Sustainable Cities and Communities, attempts to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, and resilient and sustainable. Most countries have a long way to go in achieving this goal for older adults. Technology will enable contact for a greater number of formerly isolated older adults, whether in the city or the country. Of course, challenges must be made and addressed, not only providing hardware and teaching use of software, but also provide the utilities necessary in order to use the services. These communities that had technology, telemedicine, established when COVID-19 began, had an advantage over communities that did not. Many communities are continuing telemedicine services and are increasing and improving quality of provided services. Slowly, older adults are adapting to medical visits over the telephone or through the services like Zoom. Housing is central to community and individual well-being. Livable communities must contain a range of accessible, affordable, and safe housing options. Most people wish to avoid nursing or care homes and try as best they can to remain independent in the community for the longest they possibly can. Assisted living facilities might be able to fill housing gaps, and they are difficult to find and are normally very expensive. I realize this is a lot to absorb, and we as healthcare professionals, caregivers, family members, face tremendous challenges that we need to make in our lives. As we grow older, we fight ageism almost every day. We worry about planning for the future, and wonder what surprises the next day will bring. And most of our lives have been forever changed due to COVID-19. In addition to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, a number of member countries have been advocating for a convention on human rights of older people. This will ensure development of programs that will enhance growing older everywhere on earth. Unfortunately, individuals have been advocating for the convention for about 10 years, and the pace and process is not moving forward. The main problem, developed countries like ours, and Great Britain and France, for example, are not pushing the agenda forward, whereas Canada, unofficially, and the countries in Central and South America are all asking to have the convention. It's only through the convention that we can get human rights programs in place worldwide for older adults who are 50 years old and older. Here in New York, the NGO Committee on Aging has an active education and recruitment program to convince UN representatives to advocate for a convention. You can join this effort by joining the Committee on Aging. Go online to NGO COA, and additional details are available there. I know this has been a lot of information, a lot of different programs that are currently in effect, primarily in the United Nations. But these are the programs that are going to help us move forward with developing programs that will enhance the lives of older adults. We at AARP, as you may well know, does everything we can for people 50 plus. But we're also interested in intergenerational programs. And so, if you want to join, you want to volunteer, it's easy to do. You can stop by the program here, or by the table here, I mean. I want to thank all of you for coming out. It was this morning when I first got on the train to come here, I said, oh, this is going to be a washout, because it was raining. And then I got here and I see it's this beautiful park, and I said, oh my gosh. But there is covering. Maybe if it rains, it won't, come on an angle and hit everyone. So that people will come and enjoy the event. Well, I thank you for that. I want to thank the Westchester County Department of Senior Programs and Services, May Carpenter, Colette Phipps, Jennifer Schwartz, Crawford, with whom I've worked for probably about 20 years when I was at other agencies and everything, and now in retirement, I'm able to continue to work with them on behalf of all of us older adults. Thank you very much for your time and attention.